This is our COVID Roundup and CDC update for March 28th, 2025. So diving right in, we see that LP8.1 is the leading variant. However, this is a little bit misleading, and I'll show you why in a second. So when we look over to Raj's COVID variant tracker, LP8.1.1 is leading LP8.1, 27% to 17% by all variants proportion. And if we look out at this globally, it pools it here. So for the USA, you see these two big ones over here. There's probably some smaller ones in here, but here's USA, LP8.1.1 and LP8.1. So this one is larger than this one by about 250. So what this is showing us is that within the LP8.1 grouping, since LP8.1.1 is a subvariant of LP8.1, is that they're all being grouped together by the US CDC. So this is making up more than half of that grouping. So if we look over to this 55%, so like 27%, something like that. So it's making up probably like 30% to 35% versus like 20 to 15% for LP8.1.1 in this grouping, but it's not being shown. And the question is, why is the CDC not showing this? Because we know from the data from the US that LP8.1.1 is currently exceeding LP8.1, but for some reason, the CDC is not displaying this. The most likely possibility, in my opinion, this has not been verified yet, but my assumption is that the CDC has quietly turned down tracking for variants in all of these different sites that are black. So they're not collecting as much data and aggregating it as they typically would have in the past. So while unlikely, part of it could be that they're just missing the variants, that the sites that they're actually tracking in currently isn't detecting it because the LP8.1.1 might not be in those regions. Again, very unlikely. The more likely scenario is that due to all of this craziness happening at HHS under RFK, they just don't have the manpower because of all the firings to accurately and rapidly update this data, which is why we haven't seen LP8.1.1 get added onto this and why we haven't seen it be broken out from LP8.1 in this visualization as well. Moving on to Mike Honey's global analysis of the COVID variants, looking at LP8.1.1, we see that the US is currently leading the world in variants detected for LP8.1.1, as the purple line right here. We're closely followed by France, which is also increasing. But outside of the COVID variants themselves, what is the wastewater data looking like? Well, if we look to the majority of the US, it looks like the data is relatively low. We'll show that in wastewater scan that our relative low is actually very high. It's our highest relative low to date. But if we look over here to the southeast, we see that there are many areas that are actually at very high levels. Over here, you see the oranges and the reds. And then, as I was mentioning, as we look over to wastewater scan, the 148 reporting wastewater facilities to them, we see that there is a signal increase starting to happen. We noted that it was starting to trickle up last week, and that is starting to increase once more. The places where it's currently the highest include New Jersey, Texas, and New Hampshire. Now, zooming back out, if we look at the relative lows of this current time period and we look at the past lows, we see that they are still increasing. So while we are at a relative low, according to the CDC, this relative low, this relative lull is very high compared to the past. If we look over to the first two COVID waves, it's higher than those two waves were. Additionally, while we're still seeing that New York State is missing a lot of data due to this laboratory switch, this temporary pause, which is taking a lot longer than a temporary period of time, shame on them. We have been seeing that the facilities that are still reporting have been moving from moderate low to the higher percentiles. So that's another indication that in the Northeast, things are starting to move upwards. And if we look to the Walgreens Respiratory Index tracker, we see that for the past 3 to 4 weeks that the data has been increasing. We have a minor decrease this week since the prior week, but looking at the overall trend, it is trending upwards, and this wouldn't really be considered a significant decrease. This would be more holding constant. So this signal is heading up, so this is an indication that we might already be moving back up for our summer wave.